Good evening, students. So, this is Janardhan Reddy, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of CSC, Space Institute of Technology and Sciences, Ongole. Today, I am going to give a brief description about security attacks from a course, Cryptography and Network Security. Okay, today we are going to discuss about a concept that is security attacks. So, in our previous video, we have discussed about the introduction of cryptography. So, there we have seen what is meant by cryptography and what is cryptology and what is cryptanalysis, everything we have discussed. Now, in today's class, we are going to discuss about the security attacks. So, actually the purpose of the cryptography is in order to provide the security to our data from different types of attacks. So, in that particular context only we have discussed and we have discussing about this concept, that is cryptography. Okay. Now, coming to our current concept, security attacks. So, before we are going to discuss about the security attacks, we need to know what is meant by an attack. What is meant by an attack? Attack is nothing but breaching of one's data, whether here the one's is whether he is an individual, he or she is an individual or it is an organization. So that means breaching of data without their permission. If any person is trying to access the data, that is said to be an attack. Okay. Here now breaching of data without permission. Without permission. Now, I am going to discuss about the classification of attacks. Here, these security attacks are going to be categorized into two. One is passive attack. One is passive attack, and the second one is an active attack. So, if you see this classification, automatically we come to know the different types of attacks, that is passive attacks as well as active attacks. So, then here the names itself indicates what type of attacks we are going to discuss. Okay. Now, we are going to discuss about passive attack, right? Right. Now, coming to the first type of attack, that is passive attack. Passive attack. So, here the name itself indicates. So, it is a passive attack. So, that means it is not an active. It is not an active. It is not an active. So, that means here in this passive attacks, we are not supposed to perform any type of specific operation like modification of data like that. So, that means here anything should not be happen. That means we are not supposed to perform any active action. So, that is passive attack. So, here we have two types of passive attacks. That is, one is release of message contents. Release of message contents. And the second one is traffic analysis. Traffic analysis. So, the first one is release of message contents. So, here the release of message contents is nothing but in this type of attack, the attacker is going to perform a passive action. So that means here the attacker should not perform any specific action. So that means simply he is going to eavesdrop the data what it is passing through the network. So that means here the first one is the release of message contents. So that means it directly specifies that is reading of message contents. So whatever the sender sends the data, so on other side we have a receiver, but whenever the data is passing from sender to receiver, automatically here the attacker is there in between the network. That means in between sender and receiver, he is an attacker. He is going to see what type of data we are transferring, and that means he is going to see the data and he is going to read the data, what type of data we are sending and what we are sending. That means he is going to see everything and he is going to read the contents. So that is first one, release of message content. And second one is traffic analysis. Here the name itself indicates, here the attacker is going to perform an analysis on the traffic. So what type of data? That means here the attacker is going to make a small analysis on traffic. So here what is meant by traffic? So that means in the network we have a traffic, like, so that means like IP address, what is the IP address of the, from where it is originated, and next packet size, sender, who is the sender and who is the receiver. Likewise, he is going to perform the analysis on all these things, all these contents. Okay, in this type of passive attacks, he is not supposed to perform any active action and direct action. That means in this type of attack, he is not supposed to perform any direct involvement. That means he is not going to directly involve into this attack, but he is going to observe the contents, what it is passing through the network, and he is going to read simply. Okay, so this is about passive attack. And next one is active attack. Active attack. Here the name itself indicates, here the attacker is going to be active. So that means is able to perform a direct action. Is going to perform direct action. If you see that in a passive attack, he is not supposed to perform any direct action, but whereas in an active attack he is going to perform a direct action. So that means the action in the sense is going to perform modification of contents. But if you see the passive attacks, there is no modification, but there he only eavesdrop the contents. So that means what is the data, what type of data that is, how many packets are passing through the network, and what is the size of the packet. Likewise, so everything is observed in a passive attacks. But whereas in active attacks, he is going to perform certain action on that particular data, on that particular packet. Okay, so here we have different types of active attacks, like it is also called as right. So now I am going to discuss about various active attacks. So here we have different types of active attacks. So first one is masquerade attack, and second one is replay attack. and third one is modification of message contents. And the fourth one is denial of service. So these are the four different types of attacks. Now I am going to explain each and every attack with the help of a diagram. No problem. I'll make it clear. The first one is masquerade attack. If you see this masquerade attack, so here the name is saying that, so what the attacker is going to perform, what type of action the attacker is going to perform, that is masquerade. That is nothing but the attacker is going to have a mask. So that means he is going to perform an impersonation. So what is meant by impersonation over here? Here the impersonation is nothing but, here the attacker is going to hide his identity and he is acting as another. He is acting as a legitimate user. He is acting as a genuine user. Okay. Instead of original user, the attacker will wear a mask. So that means he is going to his identity. He is going to hide his identity. Okay. And here by performing this masquerade attack, the attacker is going to make the receiver to believe as he is a genuine user. He is a genuine person. So that is a masquerade attack. So that is called as impersonation. One instead of another. So that is nothing but impersonation. And second one, replay attack. Second one is replay attack. Replay attack in the sense, here also the name itself indicates replay. So that means here in this type of attack, the attacker is going to transfer a request continuously. So that means is going to send a request repeatedly. Why? Because in order to make the receiver to believe himself as a genuine. Okay, that is replay attack. That means he is going to perform replay action. That means he is going to make an illusion to the receiver as he is a genuine. Okay. Then the third one, modification of message contents. Here students, here if you see modification of message contents. So when we are discussing about these active attacks, then there only we are going to see this modification. If you see this passive attack, there you have seen release of message contents only. So that is the difference. So that means there in the passive attack, the attacker should not perform any direct action. So he is able to see the contents, what the sender and receiver is going to be transmitted. But here he is able to perform a direct action and he is able to perform a modification. He is able to perform a modification of message content. For example, if the sender is supposed to send hi, here in between the sender and receiver there is an attacker. So automatically the attacker will take this hi message and he is going to modify as hi 1 2 3, hi 1 2 3. So actually the original message from the sender is hi, but in between the network the attacker enters into the network and automatically he modified the content. He modified the content as hi 1 2 3. The original message is hi and the appended message is hi 1 2 3. That means this 1 2 3 is going to be appended. This 1 2 3 is going to be appended by attacker. So this is nothing but modification of message attack. Okay. And the fourth one is denial of service. Denial of service. So Here it is nothing but deny is nothing but reject. Denial is nothing but deny. Deny. What is meant by denial of service? So when attacker is coming to be when attacker is going to be coming to the picture, automatically here the sender and here is the receiver. So automatically instead of sender, the attacker keep on sending the continuous malicious requests, fake requests, malicious or fake requests to the server. Sorry, here the receiver is nothing but if you consider this is a if you can going to consider it as a server, automatically the attacker is going to transfer a multiple malicious requests. Continuously he is going to transfer the multiple requests to the server. Automatically the server will consider those multiple requests or fake requests as, so that means this is the activity which is going to be performed by some other person. That means the action which is performed by the particular person is in an abnormal way. So that means the server will think in that way. That means here the attacker is keep on sending multiple messages, multiple requests to the server in order to provide the service. Then automatically the server is going to consider him as a abnormal person, is a suspect person. So in that case, the server will stop the service. The server will stop the service. So that is nothing but denial of service. Likewise, so in this way, the attacker is going to make the sender not to get the service. Okay. Okay. So we have seen different types of active attacks, and already we have discussed passive attacks. So this is the classification of security attacks. Now the next I'm going to discuss about security services. So what is security service and what is the need of these security services? Okay, right, let me explain. Okay, my dear students, so we have already discussed about various attacks, that is passive attacks as well as active attacks, right? Now I'm going to discuss about security services. So what is the purpose of these security services? So what is meant by security services? So if you see, we have already discussed about security attacks. Now my question is, so if the attacks are happening in the same way, or we are not supposed to take any measures to protect from those attacks? Okay, there we need to take certain safety measures in order to protect our data from attacks. So that is security mechanism. That is security mechanism. Security mechanism. So that means in order to protect our data from attacks, we need to incorporate a security mechanisms. Here that security mechanism will protect our data, from unauthorized access. Actually the attackers will perform certain actions in order to access our data. So this is said to be unauthorized access. In order to protect our data from unauthorized access, we are going to incorporate, or we are going to design a security mechanism. Here that security mechanism protects our data, protects our data from unauthorized access. Unauthorized access. Who will access our data in an unauthorized way? That is attacker. Now, this is our turn to protect our data from unauthorized access. So, for that purpose, we need a security mechanism. Okay, this security mechanism will protect our data from unauthorized access. Now, this how this security mechanism will protect our data from unauthorized access and what type of services it is going to give, and that means what type of services it is going to give, we are going to see now. There we have a different types of security services provided by our security mechanism. Our security mechanism. One is the first one is the first service which is provided by the our security mechanism which we have designed, that is confidentiality. Confidentiality. And second one, authentication. And third one, access control. And non-repudiation, data availability, and data integrity. Likewise, we have a number of services. Okay. Now, I'm going to discuss about confidentiality. The first and foremost important service, that is confidentiality. So, what is meant by confidentiality? So, confidentiality is nothing but protecting our data from third party access. So, here the third party access is nothing but another, that means the access which is done by the outers. That means in our general communication there is a sender as well as receiver. Here the sender is the first party and the receiver is the second party. So that's why we have mentioned that the attacker is a third party. So that means in order to protect our data from unauthorized access, we are going to take certain measures. We are going to take certain measures to protect our data from unauthorized access. So here the confidentiality is nothing but it's a protection. It's a protection. So that is the first one. And second one, authentication. Authentication. So here the authentication is nothing but, so whenever the data is initiated, the data transfer is going to be initiated by the sender, automatically the receiver will receive the data. But whenever the receiver is supposed to verify, whenever the receiver is supposed to verify whether the data is genuinely originated from the sender or not, in that case, that means if the receiver is supposed to check that, in that case the authentication mechanism will come into the picture. So that means here authentication is nothing but proving of identity. Proving of identity. Proving of identity. So that is nothing but authentication. Once the sender is supposed to be prove his identity, automatically is going to be authenticated, and the receiver is ready to access, ready to accept any type of data from that particular person. Okay, so that is nothing but second one, authentication. And third one, access control. Access control. So here the access control is nothing but, in order to protect our data from unauthorized access, we need to frame certain measures, we need to frame certain constraints to access our data in a proper way. So whenever we organize the data in a proper way, automatically we are able to get the confidentiality and authentication as well. Okay, so that is nothing but access control. So for better understanding of this access control, if you have an idea about the firewalls, so firewalls, so that means it's for, why I am giving this example, there is nothing but for better understanding only. So firewall, so here the firewall will filter the outside data, the firewall will control the outside traffic. Okay, so whenever we have a network, when the outside data is going to be enter into the network, that means whenever the outside data is going, it is going to filter the genuine data and it will stop the outside traffic. So for that purpose only we are going to use this firewall. So in this way we are going to use this access control. Okay, and the fourth one, non-repudiation. Okay, okay, and next fourth one is non-repudiation. So here non-repudiation is nothing but, we are not supposed to reject. So here in which case it is going to be happen? So that means once the sender is supposed to initiate the data transfer and he sends certain data, but whenever the receiver is supposed to verify your sender's identity, automatically he is able to verify, and later on he is not supposed to reject any requests which are made by the receiver. So that means he is not supposed to reject any request from the receiver. So that is nothing but non-repudiation. And the fifth one is data availability. So data availability in the sense, at any point of time the sender and the receiver both are supposed to be transfer the data, and the data required for the both parties, that has to be available at all cases. And the fifth one is data integrity. So data integrity in the sense, whenever the sender sends a data, automatically whatever the data which is sent by the sender, the same data should be received by the receiver. The same data should be received by the receiver without any modification. So that means the data should not be altered. Okay, no modification. Actually that should not be altered. So how the receiver is going to verify whether the data is altered or not? By checking with checksums. I think we are already familiar in a computer networks, right? Checksums. So automatically the checksum concept is going to be introduced for this particular purpose only. So that means whatever the data transfer initiated by the sender, the same data has to be received by the receiver without any modification. That is data integrity. So likewise, these type of different services are going to be provided by our security mechanism. Okay, so now I am concluding that in our class we have seen different types of security attacks and the corrective measures for the security attacks, and what are the corrective measures which are provided by the our security mechanism, and what type of services the security mechanism is going to be provided. We have discussed about all these things. Okay, thank you very much.